Hello friends and welcome back for another episode of Video Games Small Talk. Episode 13 this time around. We've been around for 13 of these things. Wild times.
It's an unlucky number.
Oh, but it's a very lucky podcast.
Yeah, I hear it's an unlucky number, but I don't believe it. Because we made it this far and we still can't be stopped. It's like what?
One of us is going to die during this podcast.
Jesus Christ, Hope. If that fucking happens,
thanks, Hope.
If that happens, I'm coming back to haunt you, goddammit.
God damn.
We're nearing the end of November, which means a lot of the big games for the year are out or are very close. And we have been playing a bunch of them, not all of them, obviously, because that is fucking impossible these days. But I'll tell you something we've all been playing is The Outer Worlds. Let's just jump right into it. Pat, Hope,
outer.
The Outer Worlds is the new, new-ish. It's been out for what, about close to like
probably about a
3
month
weeks.
now.
3 weeks now?
It's been a fair amount.
A little while.
It's basically Fallout in space.
Kind of, yeah. It's a new,
but
new
with a
style
Firefly
space,
skin on it.
The new Obsidian RPG, which has come out on Game Pass on the Xbox, and is it on Game Pass on the PC as well?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I've been playing on PC.
That's what I've been playing on,
That is rad. And that's also...
Honestly, I'm so glad this game was Game Pass, because I really, really, really wanted to try it, but I'm glad I didn't buy it.
Yeah, that was...
Yeah, that's kind of the impression that I got as well. It's kind of sad because I was not excited, but I was sort of like, oh, Obsidian, I like New Vegas. I am kind of hopeful about this setting. Let's see what it is. But I was also like not hopeful enough to spend $90 at start or whatever it costs nowadays in a store.
Yeah, right?
Yeesh.
So I suppose let's kick off from the very top. What is The Outer Worlds? It's obviously a new RPG by Obsidian. It's like very in the vein of the old Bethesda-style RPGs, especially the Fallout games. If you ever played Fallout New Vegas, obviously Obsidian made that, and that was a good one of those, despite all of its obvious sort of technical issues and some story flaws towards the end, but
some very major technical issues.
Technical issues in Bethesda games are features.
I know.
Not bugs.
I kind of agree with you.
Well, that one was Bethesda Engine, but yes.
This one is Unreal Engine, so they're not running the old Bethesda tech, but they have definitely.
Which is probably why it's less buggy.
What's funny though, because they've definitely gone down the same road of that, towing that aesthetic, that same look. You know, the big zoom in camera whenever you're having a conversation
when you
with
talk to
someone, and there's dialogue and
Yep.
kind of exploring these sort of open world spaces, and there's a lot of stuff.
And the way the waypoints on the map work as well, like it all.
They were definitely
looks,
going for that feeling, yeah.
They wanted to make a game. I feel like when Obsidian made this game, they polled all their fans, and were like, "What do you want in the game?" And they did exactly what their fans said, and that's not necessarily a good or a bad thing, but it's what happened.
Yeah, it is an interesting game because it hews so closely to what they've done before, but with a new dash of paint over it, and that's kind of all it is.
This game
could
have came out 10 years ago, and aside from it being beautiful with the skyboxes and everything, probably wouldn't have noticed. I feel like there's nothing that it does that's new or surprising or innovating at all.
Yeah, I would kind of agree with that. Although I kind of want to shift the conversation a little bit, because I don't think we're quite as negative. Or I don't know. Maybe you are, but I'm not as negative on it as that. I suppose. I don't.
I wouldn't say I'm negative on it. I'm just like, there's lots of competition for my time right now, I guess.
Totally.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. It's a perfectly fine game, but it's the kind of game when I was playing it, I just felt like I was going from waypoint to waypoint, and I noticed myself being bored while I was playing it.
How far?
And I
how
thought
far
maybe
in did you
that
get?
was me. Oh, I would say probably coming up to the 20-hour mark.
Okay. Right, so
you got very far into it.
I really pushed myself to play a bunch because I partly because I had to talk about it on New Game Plus and a couple other places, and I knew we were going to talk about it, so I pushed myself to try to do a lot, because while I'm doing it, it's not that I dislike playing it so much, it just feels like I'm doing nothing.
Right. That's almost exactly the sensation I got, and I'm the kind of person who will drop a game as soon as they stop having fun with it, basically. And at some point, I was like, I'm just doing this because I sat down and decided to do this. I'm not actually enjoying the sensation of playing it as such.
Yeah.
And I had to, when I was gonna sit down and play it, it was literally like, I could do this task, like, I'll sit down and play a video game, like, knowing that I'm not necessarily gonna get enjoyment out of it so much, but I will pass time, and I won't hate passing the time. And it's not that it's a bad game. Functionally, it's perfectly fine. Shooting feels alright. You know, your side characters...
I kind of disagree with you there. I don't think the shooting feels alright at all. I think if it...
I like the...
No.
Yeah, I like the writing, but the shooting... Well, I mean, that's the thing with Fallout games, especially...
Part of the problem with it is that because, like, the writing is incredible, but because we're expecting there to be some sort of big mechanical...
See, I wouldn't say the writing was incredible.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say the writing is incredible. The writing is comfortable. It's not incredible.
I really like I really like a lot.
I only really like Pavati, really, to be honest.
Pavati's great, but I like... oh God, it's been weeks since...
Max?
Ellen? Was that her name?
The Doctor?
The Doctor from the...
yeah, I can't remember what her name is, but I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah, the Doctor from the ship, from the second ship that you go to. It's been a few weeks since I've played Outer Worlds.
Yeah.
Me too.
We haven't recorded one of these for a little while because my PC died, but I spent a lot of money to get a new one, so we're back.
It's amazing.
I know, I'm very happy with it.
New PCs.
But yeah, this kind of just... I think I had the same experience as you guys in that I kind of got to a point where I was like, I am just ticking off boxes here. I'm just ticking off a to-do list here, going from place to place, and I'm not really enjoying exploring any of these smaller open worlds rather than... That's one of the choices that they made over the sort of Bethesda style open world
having
games.
This big map kind
rather
of thing.
than having a big wide open world to explore, they've got several sort of smaller locations, and I don't know if that works for me at all.
It doesn't work at all.
I don't actually think that was the problem for me. I just found that when I was on these worlds... Oh, I just hit my microphone, that's probably not good. When I... Whoopsie.
We're recording live, folks.
When I was on the worlds, because the worlds themselves aren't that small, they could take up a bit of space. But if I went from, say, point A to my waypoint for whatever quest, nothing would happen on the way there.
Right, there was no points of interest.
I might see, like, the same sort of standard groups of enemies or whatever, or, like, a little encampment, but even if I went and raided the entire thing, I wouldn't find anything amazing. It just felt so lifeless.
So I think there's sort of two aspects of it to me, and one thing that open world games are good at is sort of the clockwork nature of them, where there's lots and lots of different systems interacting at all times, and sometimes that lends a procedural element, and sometimes that doesn't, and that's kind of a cool thing in some open world games. And the other thing is in Fallout games, especially like Skyrim and Oblivion, it turns out that a lot of the space between things is itself meaningful because of it, like, renders the interesting encounters actually interesting. Yeah. Like, this is much more of a diorama playset where everything's crammed into the same location and you're following these paths around.
Yeah.
And I was just sort of thinking that, like, even just exploring that first zone, which, is a first zone by nature and not meant to be that, big or whatever, but I was just sort of like, but in New Vegas, when you wake up, you get shot in the head or whatever, you wake up and you're just like, well, I'm just going to walk in this direction and see where this takes me. And there's always, like, a little interesting thing. There's maybe a vault with a short story in it or something, but that sense of exploration, and I didn't even realize it until I played this game, but I was like, oh, I'm really missing that sense of going over the horizon and being like, what the hell is here? It's kind of here, but not really.
You don't get that when you approach a new planet on a ship, like on the ship at all. I certainly didn't get that sense of, oh, I'm in a new place and I'm going to start uncovering all of this new sort of fascinating stuff, hopefully.
But I
didn't get any of that
personally
at
think
all.
that's, like, I wouldn't say that's the fault of it being, small planet systems. It's just when you did try to explore one planet, it didn't give you any reward. So when you went to the next one, you didn't expect anything.
Well, I don't even know if it's that. I think it's like a case of that sort of when you got to the planets, nothing really changed or happened, or it's like everyone was kind of just a marionette waiting for you to show up. And once you got close, they would sort of spring to life. And like, you know, as Patrick just said before, that a big part of modern open world games is having this really systemic element to it, that, you know, the system
I mean, not all of them, right?
Obviously,
but some of them.
But it is a big feature, and especially in those Bethesda style games. And
I think that's always been the joy of those games for me.
Totally.
This one not having it was a real problem.
Yeah, this doesn't have that, which was hugely jarring for me, especially given that they have outwardly pushed and gone down the road of this Bethesda's open world template sort of aesthetic, and then they've, you know, obviously tried to play with it a little bit and do sort of their own thing with it.
Can I just ask you about what you thought with the shooting? Because to me, I was just trying to clarify in my head what I thought, and it felt kind of like the same shooting as Borderlands games do to me.
Mm-hmm. Sure, yeah. So I think the Borderlands games have a little bit more going on sort of under the hood, in terms of you know, damage multipliers and elemental damage and all of that sort of thing going on. And whereas this just felt very straightforward and slightly unrefined, and I don't know, it didn't sort of lack any kind of outstanding element at all. It felt like everything was pretty middling, and yeah, there was very little feedback. There's very little payoff when you know, actually take an enemy down. It's outside of you know, I get to go and loot them and see if they've got anything on them or whatever. But it's an uncanny feeling that, you know, when you play a game and you just don't have any kind of response to it whatsoever, and it's a weird.
You're just like, this is adequate.
Yeah, exactly. I'm playing a video game.
You're not even like, this sucks. You're just like, it's okay.
Yeah. No, it's something that disappointed me, which is a total aside, is all the coolest weapons I found were melee weapons.
Yeah.
Like, I had this like badass scythe thing that like oozed red.
That's cool. They did have some cool looking melee weapons, actually.
Yeah, but being a melee wielder is pretty much impossible because everybody else has a gun.
Yeah.
And so if you're the guy trying to run up to people with your scythe, like, you're just getting shot.
I just find companions really funny in these games because companions are stupid because the AI is terrible.
Oh man,
but the way they compensate for that is that the AI is that your companion will just get up after battles. So every time I was just like, okay, here's a minigun, here's a set of power armor, just do as much as you can. Like, they're mainly useful to draw other people's fire while you run around and just like headshot people.
Once I learnt to use their abilities, they became a lot more useful.
That's true. Their abilities are pretty cool.
And like, they just, like, for example, Pavadi's ability is like the melee strike, and she just literally teleports wherever you tell her to.
Right.
So if you want to get her out of danger, I would look for like the lone enemy and be like, go hammer that guy, and then she does.
I will say them up. Oh my god!
I will say the RPG elements of this game really worked for me fairly well. Just sort of like, okay, it was like granular enough that I was like, oh, I'm happy to move around points from this to that or whatever. But it was also sort of like simplified enough that I wasn't like, oh god, I'm stuck in a goddamn stat sheet.
Totally. And there's another element to that I really liked, which was the floors system.
Oh, you could take, I had that happen to me. I got too many mines exploded, and I took a lot of head damage trauma. And so the game offered me this like perk, which was like, basically,
you're stupid now.
It was something to do with head trauma, and it meant that I would. I can't even remember what it was, but it was some downside.
Yeah, it was like,
and in return, I got like an extra point to put into perks.
I think I know the one. I got a similar one, something to do with explosives, and it was something to do. It would drop your intelligence, and it was one other physical property by one, but then you would be like crazy strong or something.
Yeah, I think it just gave you a perk point for the one I had.
That's right.
But none of the perks are interesting. pretty much. So like I didn't care about it.
They're kind of 10% this, 5% that, and I'm like,
none of the
like I liked that concept because you could really build a character around what happened to you if you chose it.
For sure.
But the upside of getting a perk, I was like, great, I can have 10% more health.
Yeah, it's not like a Black Widow perk or something in
Yeah,
Fallout,
it wasn't cool stuff like that.
Or a gunslinger or something, which, I mean, there is some cool stuff, like, if your stats are low enough, there's a whole low intelligence run built in and stuff like that.
Yeah, I heard about that, and how, like, everything you say is just dumb, and there's that secret ending with the game if you've got that too. But I found that with my my experience points, I put pretty much all of them into speech, because combat was never difficult, so I never felt the need to put anything into combat. Yeah. I just put them all into speech, but even then, even when I had the highest speech options, sometimes I'd still see options locked out for me.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't understand why.
It also has this thing where the speech checks all kind of resolve to the same sort of just like, okay, you can convince the guy to do it via lying or persuading or doing the other thing, or you can shoot him, or you can whatever, and it's like, it's kind of half and half. It's like, oh, it's very reactive. Like, if you're wearing this weird piece of armor, they'll be like, oh my god, you're here to kill me. And you'll be like, no, chill out. But also, all the options sort of just terminate at the same branches.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
It felt... the speech kind of reminded me of, like, Vampire the Masquerade. But not as good.
No.
Which is kind of sucky, given how old that game is.
I think part of it is that you really don't feel like a character. Like, everyone else feels like a character, and you are just like, I was just like, oh, I'm a protagonist. I'm a protagonist in a video game. That's how I feel.
Doesn't really work in this game, does it?
I don't mind silence, but like, even though they have dialogue and dialogue options, it's all just like, oh, I'm the witty protagonist of a video game. You know,
and it
like,
also, like, you could be asshole A at one point and then be good guy B the next second, and it feels really like unrealistic. Like, you don't actually have a character sense. You're just like, I'm gonna choose. It's the same as like in Mass Effect, how there's like the good person option and the bad person option, and it's just, which person am I today, good or bad?
Definitely.
Like, which brand of asshole?
Kind of a binary choice, it feels like. I think perhaps it could probably be best, or at least my time with the Outer Worlds could be best summed up by saying that I felt like, after not a very long time whatsoever, and I tried to persevere through this, and I think I got about 12 hours in before I pulled the plug. And I don't know, maybe I'll go back to it again, but I felt like I could see the cogs turning, you know, and I could see the machine working and the machine in motion, and that just, as soon as that happens, it just, and especially in one of these games, it's definitely one of those sort of immersive, not immersive sim, but it takes on that kind of level of playability. You know, you want to be you want to throw yourself into it, and I felt like, especially the lacking of the sort of the systemic, the more systemic side of these sorts of games, missing that really sort of peel back the curtain for me a whole lot on what was going on, and as soon as I started seeing that, I was like, I think I'm not actually invested in this whatsoever.
It just doesn't build investment for whatever reason. I should also note that this wasn't particularly widespread, but I was getting terrible crashing issues. There was one point where every time I would enter into the clear water, I would just crash, and I had
swear
to fix...
you have issues with every game.
Nah, not every game. Not the incredibly old games that I play to escape these issues. I'm going to buy more new games and see how badly they crash my computer, so stay tuned.
Yeah, no, I think we all kind of have the same vibe from it, and it's just that there's no magic. Like, video games to me are obscene pieces of magic works that somehow get strewn together and make me feel things and enjoyment and stuff. And this one just didn't have that. Like, just that sense of just ticking off my boxes and going from A to B and not being ever surprised. And I think also part of me just didn't like how much it felt like Firefly, because as much as I enjoyed the show Firefly, people who love Firefly generally suck. And it felt like it was
so
placating those people. Like, I get it, you're brown coat.
Get wrecked, Firefly fans.
I was also just sort of like, oh man, I already live in a world of fucking crushing capitalism. I don't need to go to a fantasy world of crushing capitalism as well.
That's my other issue with it, right? Because there'd be all these, like, moral choices, and I'm like, nope, fuck capitalism. Like, this isn't a moral choice for me. I don't care about these other people. Just fuck them all. Like, and I could tell it was trying to get me to think really hard, like, oh, but I'm going to put all these people out. I'm like, no, fuck them, they'll learn. Like, no, I'm done with this corporate bullshit.
Nice. You weren't taking any of Parvati's bullshit, though, then, from that?
No, not even a little bit. I was like, yeah, I'll listen to you, sure. Listening,
Nice.
you know, pushing the self-destruct.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm totally listening to you while you're flicking the lever.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on the Outer Worlds?
I wish it was better. That's all
Yeah.
there is.
I'm
Like, I wanted to like it, and
Same.
it just
I was
didn't. And I don't hate it, but it
unbelievably
doesn't have that magic.
surprised that it didn't capture me the way that I was expecting. I sat down to play that game just fully expecting to be immersed in something for 30 hours,
Right.
and just like, I'm ready for this. Let's do it.
It got me for a little bit. But
I was so excited to feel that, like, complete sync of being in one of these huge RPG worlds.
Did we overhype
and I
ourselves?
didn't feel it.
Is that part of what's
No.
happened
I
here?
don't think so.
I don't think so. We just sort of looked at it and be like, oh, it's an Oblivion game. It'll probably be alright.
I wanted it to be like the same
Obsidian
way I
game,
felt
sorry.
playing most Bethesda RPGs, I
Sure.
guess.
Yep, totally fair. Moving on.
Speaking of overhyping things or underhyping things or something, I don't know.
Getting mad.
Yeah,
What's up with
James.
Speaking of
Pokemon?
getting mad on the internet, Pokemon.
That's true. That's definitely true.
Hope.
So are you
man.
a Dexiteer? Are you a
What have you
Dexiteer?
been playing?
No.
What have you been playing? Have you been playing Sword or
I've
Shield?
Shield
been
or sword?
playing- Oh, sword, of
What
course.
do you mean, of course?
Well,
Yeah,
one
Shield
of
is
them has
Ponyta.
a shield and one of them has a sword. Like, I'm not gonna be a lame-o and pick the shield.
Oh, woof.
But
Bad
also,
news for Shield apologists.
yeah. Also, Surfetched is a is a sword exclusive. So
Oh, that's true.
he's got a long leak.
Get your big leak.
It's such.
It's very
Pre-order
smug
bonus.
looking. Pre-order bonus is some sort of golden bag, I think. So
Oh, I got that from Amazon, and I looked at it because, I didn't know that I got anything.
Amazon?
I just pre-ordered it from the cheapest place possible. Yeah, okay. I was really, really against doing it, and all these people were like, "No, just do it!" Like, and they convinced me to give up my morals. Yeah, and I bought stuff off Amazon, and I feel real bad. Anyway, the backpack that it gives you is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. It's like a cube, and it's gold, like fucking like a gold brick, and it's got like an X across it and these like little studs, and it's all gold. There's no contrast. It's just this shiny gold X brick, and it's the ugliest thing I've ever seen. And you could absolutely
Fantastic.
picture some like 50-year-old woman like dressed head to toe in Gucci in a cafe, like having it strapped to her. And I was like, I am not ever using this because no one's
Love
ever
it.
known that I got this on Amazon.
absolutely love it. So how's the video game?
10 minutes on the bag.
Yeah, tell us about the
yeah.
gaudy treats.
So once I realized that I didn't have to do anything for this game for work, which is not common for me, I suddenly just decided to make sure that I didn't work too hard at it, but I avoided spoilers. So I
Yeah.
avoided seeing any of the new Pokemon, anything
I'm
at
doing
all.
the same.
And that has made this game so great. Because there are so many new Pokemon, and the designs are all so different and weird. Like, I was sitting there playing it, and a Pokemon would, like, pop up. And
You mean like they might be different from the last games?
no, it's just that they're so... Shut up, James.
Well, I think it's like, because stuff will just pop on the internet and then everyone will just overanalyze the shit out of it. And I've
it's
had
really-
Pokemon muted for like 2 weeks now at this
It's
point. And
really easy to just not be surprised by things. But when all these... Yeah. Look, James, I hate you.
It's really
Stop laughing
it's
at
really
me.
easy to not be a data miner and just go and dig through files and then think you found something that you didn't fucking find, you fucking idiots.
So, yeah, I'd be walking in the grass, and what's cool about this one is they've mixed random encounters and overworld ones, so nothing is completely random. which is nice. So if you see in the grass, there'll be Pokemon walking around, and if you bump into one of those, that's the Pokemon that you're going to be going into like the battle sequence with.
That's awesome.
And sometimes in the grass, you'll see an exclamation point. And if you go to that part in the grass, then you get a random encounter. But they're important to do because some of the Pokemon that appear there will not appear in an overworld form. Right. But it's still never just walking through the grass and randomly encountering something.
Right.
You either, like, sometimes it happens by accident for you because, you know, you might not mean to go into that thing, but it's never random. And I really appreciate that. But when I was going through the world and the first couple of hours of the game, I was sitting there playing on my couch with my partner, very kindly sitting next to me. And I'd, like, encounter a Pokemon, and I'd be like, what the fuck is this? And then I'd get really excited, and I'd catch it, and then, like, 2 minutes later, I'd be like, what the fuck is that? Like, just this constant sense of awe.
That's the joy you want from Pokemon, to be honest.
Yeah, and I haven't had that in a really long time, so I'm really loving it.
Take notes, Outer Worlds.
Has,
yeah.
How is it, like, all the stuff people are whining about? I guess, like, the XP share system stuff, is the difficulty any different? Like, does it do what Sun and Moon does and just trap you in like, tutorials for 20 minutes or something at the beginning?
No, it did this thing where it gave me Pokeballs before the tutorial for Pokeballs happened. And so I was catching Pokemon before I got to that point. And then when I did get to that point, he was like, oh, I can see you've already caught some Pokemon. Here's some more balls. Go nuts, instead of teaching me.
No, that's good.
And I was like, that was really organic too. It felt like just really like it was like, you got this.
I saw some stuff where like the rival will call you out if you get a critical hit on him in the first thing, because that's a completely luck-based thing, and he's just sort of like, hey, what? God damn it.
Like, if you do like a move that's super effective, he'll be like, I should have known you were on top of your typings. I hate the rival because his name is Hop.
That's pretty great.
And
does he have? Did he take the Score Bunny?
No, I took the Score Bunny. So I'm
excited to see the evolutions because I haven't yet, and everyone is like, "Oh, this looks like shit." I'm like, "Shut the fuck up! I don't give a shit."
So I hadn't seen any of the evolutions. I still haven't seen Sobbles because he got taken by the champion. So my rival and I have seen Owl. I'm really glad I didn't pick Grookey because I hated him anyway. But his evolutions suck ass so much, and Score Bunnies are like okay. But my biggest complaint when it comes to designs in this game, because for the most part I love seeing all these weird takes on like, and fucking Meowth, have you seen
it's like that weird like almost Ghibli monster sort of thing, like
they look like where the wild things are, little monsters. So I really like seeing all these new designs, but something that I don't like is a lot of the new designs or evolutions, so like all the starter evolutions become bipedal.
Oh, they just stand up and become weird anthropomorphic.
Yeah, and like as someone who doesn't want to fuck Pokemon, I don't like it when Pokemon look too much like people because that's really weird for me. Because I think of them as these like fun animal friends who I can like hug and like ride and go on adventures with, and when they're kind of human-esque, it's awkward, man. Like
it also brings up the weird slavery question at some point.
Yeah, I really, and sometimes because I've got a high like emotional connection with them now from playing with them for so long and things like that, it'll be like so and so looks like it wants to be petted, and when that looks like a man
you're like, oh no, you got some Fire Emblem in my Pokemon.
No, I did not want this is not what I played for.
Oh dear.
As far as difficulty goes, because of the XP share, there's no need to grind, which I kind of like, to be honest. Like it's not a hard game, but I've never found Pokemon games hard. Like they're not difficult.
Gold and Silver post game was some bullshit.
There's
some good bullshit, but
I haven't got to post game yet. But post game's meant to be a challenge. Like a lot of games, they get that way. But so far, like every time I come to a gym, I'm more than equipped to take it on. You know, just use whatever their weakness is and real fuck them up. What I love about this game so far, though, I love a lot of things about it, to be honest. I'm really enjoying it. I don't know if it's the best Pokemon game ever, but it does a lot of fresh, new things. It just feels so fresh. But it's all about spectacle. So there's the Dynamaxing, which I did not like the idea of at all
the Dynamaxing
before. So there are areas in the world that have a special energy, and in those areas, Pokemon can get huge for no good
so that's
reason.
the giant Raichu and the giant Gyarados that we see
Yeah.
in the trailer.
And the gyms are purposefully built on these spots so that they can take advantage of them.
Kind of.
Yeah,
look,
so
that's
they
some-
literally built their gym.
That's such a
around
good
this.
idea, though. It's just sort of
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, we found this place of
It's not a
power
good
where
idea.
like these animals get mega huge. Let's build a sporting
That's
arena
absolute
around it.
fuckery.
Like, good shit. Like
No.
Australians would do that in a second. I hope they
So-
make a Pokemon Australia.
There's this real sporting element in this Pokemon because when
Yeah.
you go into the arenas against the gym leaders, it's always a big sporting arena, and the fans are all there. And like when you get into the Dynamax, all the fans are like "Hey!" and stuff in the background, and it just feels so great. And like you're throwing this huge Pokeball around to get this big guy out of it, and there's a crowd, and you're just like, I'm gonna kick this guy's ass, and it's just a good time.
Nice. You're just having a, it's like I'm getting like
This is
Wii Sport
I actually
vibes.
kind of I kind
Sorry?
of want to play this. He's getting Wii
getting
Sport vibes off
Wii
this.
Sport
Oh.
vibes from the like your like crowd.
It's more like arms, honestly. That's the
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's a little bit. It's the
which was
the-
itself already like Brazilian soccer sort of.
well,
inspired,
that's the
so-
thing because soccer's so huge in the UK, and these ones are
Sorry,
sort of set.
football. I should be on brand.
Football's so huge in the UK, so it's all kind of based around that a bit. But because it's no one's like going home and beating their wives afterwards, it's not as sad.
Oh god, they're just beating their Pokemon. Sorry, Hope, you
You guys
brought
can't
it up.
laugh at this.
You brought this up. You brought this
Just-
upon
Can
yourself.
in this
There's none of the
podcast.
violence. So like when I think of UK football, I can't help but think of the riots and the violence that comes with it. And this doesn't have that because it's Pokemon
Yeah.
and they're all nice. But yeah, I don't know. I've just got this real sense of discovery and enjoyment. It's like everything the Outer Worlds didn't give me. Pokemon is like, yeah,
Out of a
have it.
Pokemon game. Well, it is an RPG, so I guess that's comparable.
But it is easy. Like it's
Yeah.
not a hard game. So far it does kind of tell you where to go a little bit too. Like there's actually like on when you open your map, you can even see your next objective with a little flag and things. So it doesn't have that. Early Pokemon games kind of encouraged you to not know what the fuck you were doing. Like I remember playing Pokemon Yellow when I was like 8, and for like
Just getting lost.
for like a solid 6 months, I did not know that I had to take a drink to get
think-
through to Saffron City. So
think I have a
just hit
comparable
wall
experience,
there.
so yeah.
Like, and it wasn't until my dad, who doesn't play video games, I was like, yeah, can't get into this area. And Dad's like, why not? I'm like, they just say that I'm not allowed in there. And he's like, but what do they say? And I'm like, look, let's go talk to one. And Dad's like, maybe they're thirsty. I'm like, well, you can't give people drinks. He's like, go get one. And I did. And I was like, oh, Dad's right, stupid dad. Yeah. And it,
Classic.
Playing games
So it
with
doesn't
your
have-
dad.
it doesn't have that sort of level of unknown things, but I'm really enjoying discovering all these new places and all these new Pokemon, and just it's such a dumb thing to say, but I like the vibe of the thing.
Yep.
Is that-
I'm sorely tempted to grab it alongside a slew of other games right now.
Is that kind of like the warm blanket of Pokemon that you think?
So it definitely, I was absolutely looking forward to this game for just the nostalgia shot. Like, I knew that even if it wasn't good,
I mean, it's helpful that you weren't
I've
doing
been-
anything work-wise with the game, because then you can just kind of...
and I knew I could just sit there and enjoy
Yeah.
it. And I also wasn't, like, I was feeling pretty sick as well, so I just kind of bundled myself up, and I had this, like, great thing to do. And so I think a lot of it for me probably is that, but I do also genuinely just think it's really charming. And I guess if you don't like Pokemon, you probably won't like it. But if some of the reasons you haven't liked Pokemon in the past is because it's all a bit too obscure, then I guess this takes that out of it. And a lot of people were upset about things like the national dex not being included, but I don't care. I think it's fine. Like, I know that it would suck so much if you had, like, this favourite Pokemon and then suddenly you couldn't play them in the new area, but for me, a new game, I'm not even
It's a
using
new
an
game.
Eevee.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
I'm
a new slate every time for
trying
me.
to use all these
so.
new Pokemon and see what they're like, and that's where the joy comes from for me. But that's not everyone's jam.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Speaking of not everyone's jam,
yes, I have been.
you've been playing the divisive, very divisive Kojima
chugging
game.
that Monster Energy and delivering my packages in Death Stranding.
Yes, it's a Strand game.
I like.
How far in are you? How far in are you?
Can't stop playing this game. I can't stop
Fantastic.
playing Death Stranding.
But but like in a good way, or in a sort of like Kojima has infected your brain with nanomachines kind of way?
In a good way. It's. I don't know if I'm. I don't know how far into the depths of Stockholm Syndrome I've descended, but I was not expecting to be just
so positive
and consistently thinking about it when I'm not playing it all the fucking time.
So I know that you and I are quite different in some of our tastes for games, whereas you tend to like games that are incredibly relaxing.
Yeah.
And I don't, because I find them boring and a little bit weirdly
stressful.
stressful.
You would absolutely find this game boring as fuck. Oh,
and I know that about myself, which is why I've not ever... Like, I've looked at this game from day one, and I've been like, this is not a hope game.
Not a hope game, definitely not. It might be a Patrick game?
Yeah, I was looking at it, I was like, I've historically liked Metal Gears, Metal Gear Solids, and I've also historically liked weird...
Definitely not Metal Gear.
Well, I mean, but his weird sensibilities, right? Like, that's part of what I like about it.
I like the weird sensibilities stuff. Like, I at least find it entertaining, if nothing else.
This has got plenty of that.
But I just... Is 90% of the game, because the impression that I get is 90% of the game is carrying shit and walking.
Yep.
And that's what I can't get behind.
The bit that sounded interesting to me is the sort of internet-connected building shit, building superhighways, like connecting to other people and being like, oh, you've delivered this or whatever, and then giving people likes.
That's
that may or may not be a weird dopamine sensation.
Yeah, so that's a really big part of the game. You know, it's enough has been said about how sledgehammery the metaphors are in this game.
Mm-hmm. I heard it is very blunt.
I mean, that's Kojima though. He's heard of a metaphor, but he doesn't know what one is.
I mean, if he hasn't crushed...
He doesn't want anything to do with it,
If he hasn't crushed you between, like, into the ground with his metaphors 5 hours in, then he's not done...
God help you, you're resistant.
Exactly, you are one resilient person. So, yeah, Death Stranding is basically all about... it's like a third person. I would deign to call it an action game because whilst there is action, it's trucking simulator, isn't it? It's the slow TV of video games. It's
that bloody train ride that goes across Australia.
It is
2 hours long or something.
It is that train ride. If every 20 or 30 minutes that train ride had to go through like a kind of half scary section where there might be some kind of fucked up ghosts that might fuck you up with some...
Also,
that sounds like a good video game. We should make that video game.
And there's also a baby there, and occasionally you'll have flashbacks of Mads Mikkelsen, and and even more occasionally Troy Baker will come out wearing a cool gold mask and just lay out the melodrama.
Is that which one is he? Is he Hot Dead Man? Is he?
He plays.
He doesn't actually have a cool mask name or something.
Which I am just waiting for the Higgs boson reference. I'm just waiting for it to land. It may or may not. I don't know if that's actually a part of the game. I'm not. How far am I in? I've just hit chapter 3, which is probably actually no. I'm a long way into chapter 3 now. I'm at least 6 or 7 hours into chapter 3. I don't know. Maybe I've been playing this game for somewhere between 15 to 20 hours.
I like how you just don't know. Like, I feel like you were robbed of all concept.
You don't... I don't play games for long stretches of time. I play a game for maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours tops, right? That's how long I have a session usually. The other day, I played this for 7 or 8 hours. 7 or 8 hours straight.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I didn't go to bed till like 2 a.m. I think I started playing at like 6, and then all of a sudden it was like 2 in the morning, and I'm like, I need to go to fucking bed. this is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's no good.
What am I doing?
And you get up at like 4.
Yeah, and I better believe that I was up at 5 a.m. that morning, letting my cat outside, absolutely fucking delirious, but I was still thinking about Death Stranding.
That's Kojima. He stole that from you.
Can I ask what you're like? What is it that you think about?
Exactly. What is it that's so fascinating?
What is the loop?
The loop is just exploring.
Deliveries?
Just
is that it?
exploring this world and connecting the people within it through the chiral network, which is God.
A great name,
do I really want to go into this right now?
No, don't. I mean, it's like the Internet of Things.
Kind of. It's like
internet electricity. It's like recipes for your 3D printer or
all-encompassing
whatever the
metaphor
shit.
for like the connections between people, for like human relationships.
It's the Strand. It's the
World
fucking
Wide
Strand.
Web. For this, the Strand is actually like a physical piece of rope. Like they actually call rope strands because it's encoded with your blood. That's how they identify you when you run into like one of the bridges distribution centers, which is where you pick up all of your mail delivery stuff. Anyway, your whole goal is that it falls to you. Some stuff happens. Some important people die, and some other stuff happens, and then it falls to you to connect America and to make America great again. He hasn't used that reference yet, but he has. But there are a couple of allusions to it, so I want to see how far they take it. But
gosh.
The thing that I'm so fascinated by is just the traversal, and so and kind of the world. The world is so mysterious. Like, is one of these. It's one of these games where it is so detailed to the point of it's convoluted. You know, it's almost.
I mean, that's traditional.
Exactly,
That's Kojima.
But some sense.
But that's also kind of what. In many ways, it is what I fully expect from a Kojima game. I expect to have all of these things going on that I don't know anything about. Like, so this element of the sort of social side of the game is actually really fascinating. Because obviously it's difficult to make your deliveries. Moving across the land is it's not hard, but it's very easy for you to fall over. You have to be a little bit patient. You have to.
This sounds the worst.
So look, it's not like some people have called it like kind of like co-op-like, and it's definitely not that. It's definitely not like difficult, but it's not a game where you don't think about your own movement and you don't think about your own center of gravity. That's part of it. You have to.
I've seen people with like just stacks hide and flailing everywhere.
Exactly, but that sort of becomes a part of it, especially as you get these sort of power skeletons later on that let you carry like a considerably higher load. But then obviously you can only fit so much on your back because otherwise you can't fit into spaces, and if you try to walk.
Here I am with my lame regular skeleton.
You got to get those power skeletons.
When you get those power skeletons, they're great. So yes, connecting the world and uncovering things. So the social side of it is because delivering things is hard, and you have a number of things to go up against. Like you have the BTs, which are like these otherworldly death creatures that, if they make contact with a living human being, create something called a void out, which is a cool name, and B. Like some kind of nuclear explosion, which
metaphysical death explosions.
Yeah, it is devastating to say the least. And
my understanding from other people talking about this is, at first, the encounters with the BTs are terrifying, but then after a little while, they just become like super duper easy. Like, because once you learn them, they're not scary anymore. They're just a thing that happens.
They're still tense to me. However many hours in that I am now, they're certainly not as tense as they were because you don't understand them at the very beginning, and you don't quite get what they are and how they move and how they can see you and all of that sort of thing. And once I think you've gotten around the mechanics of how you can move around them and what you need to do, so like if one of them gets really close to you, you just got to hold your breath. because you've got this little thing on your back that like will ping and sort of
the weird clicky arm.
Little clicky arm that will
the grabby.
Yeah, and it keeps like clicking louder and louder, and then once it gets really close, it'll turn orange and start spinning, and it's kind of like it kind of has a similar effect to the motion sensor in Aliens, in that when you hear the bling 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 bling, and then once they get close, obviously that sound gets a lot louder and more frantic. And the same thing happens with the little clicky arm. It's called the Odridek, I think, in the game. But that thing also acts as like a cool little scanner, which like it can scan the environment. You can find like lost deliveries off in the distance, and if you pick them up and then you deliver them, they could be deliveries that are lost by other players. So like they have been hit or attacked, or they've fallen over, and they've
cargo fell
exactly.
everywhere.
Their cargo's fallen everywhere. It might have fallen in a river and fallen down and like just floated off down the river, which totally happens. It happened to some of my stuff before. It's incredibly frustrating. But if you find all of that stuff and then deliver it, you get more likes, which makes the numbers go up, and it makes you a better porter. And then as the numbers go up, your connection to the chiral network becomes stronger, which means you can see more stuff. You can see more player-created buildings, more player-created structures, things like post boxes, things like generators.
I guess that's how they get around someone
ladders and highways and stuff,
ladders
right?
And eventually highways. Like the highways are really fascinating because they're like these big community features where everybody has to contribute sort of resources. So like things like metals and ceramics and all of that other stuff that goes into creating these highways. And eventually, if you're a part of like whether you build it yourself or whether you drop off a bunch of resources, contribute a bunch of resources, eventually once these roads are built, as players use them, you're automatically left more likes, which you will get pinged about every now and again, where 100 players have used your road, you've gotten 6,500 likes. And whilst that sounds weird and me saying it seems really strange when I hear myself speaking these words, in the context of the game it makes perfect sense, and it actually feels like you're contributing to making people's lives a little bit easier within this world. And that is in itself, as much as that is also kind of a weird heavy-handed metaphor, is also really fascinating because it fucking works. Like that's actually the vibe that I'm getting from the game, and it's that's a big part of the driving factor that's sort of pulling me forward. I mean, the story is convoluted and batshit insane, as you would expect from Kojima, but I'm also invested in it in a way. I wish they would stop. I wish they would stop telling me how important it is to connect America. I fucking get it.
It's funny because the social stuff that you're talking about, this sounds really random, but when I'm playing Pokemon, there's a thing called Wonder. It was called Wonder Trade in the old game. Now it's Surprise
is it the random trade?
Yeah. And I
love that
always
shit.
Make sure to catch extras, and so I'm always got a trade loaded up, and I try to make sure to catch good shit too. And if
there was nothing like sending something amazing through and you get a level 5 Rattata back.
Yeah,
like, no!
But I kind of love it because it means that person that I've sent this really cool thing to has probably just started, and now they've got this level 40 slightly rare Pokemon that they don't know where the fuck it came from. And even though I get no reward from this, in fact usually I get the opposite of a reward because I trade something great for something shit. Sometimes I get something cool, but there's just that sense of knowing I'm helping someone out that keeps me doing it. I just enjoy it.
I totally get that.
I think the Public Works project, this sounds like in Metal Gear 5 there was the hidden nuke ending that was data mined out of the files, and there was sort of if everyone disarmed, it was supposed to there was never any confirmation of how to officially do this, but it was going to unlock a hidden nuke ending where that's
didn't that happen on PC?
And this sounds...
Didn't they?
Oh, No, it only happened because they data mined the shit out of it, I think.
I thought it happened legitimately. I thought that...
No, I don't think so.
Fair enough.
But it's just sort of like, oh, he took that concept of everyone working together towards a common goal and has instead looped it into the integral gameplay design, and not just multiplayer gameplay design, but into the single player, which feeds into the multiplayer using almost like the Soulsian sort of elements to it.
But
which
my
is
fear
pretty
was that
impressive.
all this community stuff was going to make it like really boring or easy for people who got into it later, but you're telling us that you can only see these things as you get more.
So
I think that's a really great way to do it as well, if that's how it works.
That sounds like it's a smart way of doing things.
So basically, not only does you strengthening your connection to the chiral network increase your bandwidth, which means you can see more stuff. It also, as you deliver more things to like other folks, particularly folks on the edge of society, so there's a lot of preppers and a lot of sort of soul living folks living off the grid, and as you strengthen your bonds with them and connect them up to the network as well, you'll learn to build better things, which then you can obviously share on with other players. And although that doesn't mean that you'd like, if I was to build a post box and then share, like, let's say like the bowler gun, which is a gun that you get, non-lethal weapon that you get probably about 12 or 13 hours into the game. If I was to leave that in a post box in the first area, an early game player wouldn't find that, because it's probably, I would assume it's like locked off, to somebody who has a certain level
range or
something like that. It's some number hidden in the background. It's a lot of that stuff isn't sort of surface shown to the player, which I think is good. That's one of the things that I like about some of Kojima's games.
Yeah, no, that sounds smart.
There's a lot of that kind of systemic mystery happening in the background.
Unlike Outer Worlds.
Gosh, yeah, there's a lot to say about Death Stranding, but
it sounds fascinating.
Yeah.
Even if people's reactions are very divisive, it's still, even the people who are like, "Oh, I'm not hot on this," are still like, "But it's very."
That's what I was going to say about it. It's one of those water cooler games where it really is going to rely on a lot of those water cooler moments, because the first part of the game is spent getting used to the fact that you have to be aware of the world that you're in. You have to be aware of where you're stepping. If you step on a rock and trip yourself up, then you'll fuck yourself up. You'll drop your cargo everywhere. You might damage something beyond repair, and that ruins your delivery. Which I know that like
definitely
that
not a hope
sounds,
thing.
That part sounds terribly boring, but. And it kind of comes to, I was thinking about this today and like just sort of tweeting offhand as I was walking home from lunch, but it kind of pushes home that point that I don't think games necessarily need to, how am I going to say this? I don't think games necessarily need to feel good all the time for them to be good, and I think this is a case of that. It's not that the movement feels bad or anything along those lines, but it is a struggle, and the journey.
Well, there's a lot of achievement that can come from that,
and
right?
But that's the point. Like that is totally the point. Is that you spend the early hours of the game learning the world and learning how to traverse through everything, and then the next phase of the game feels to be okay. You're applying all of the lessons that you've learned early, and then as you start to feel comfortable, that's when things start to go wrong, and you start, like I had this moment where I was trying to get out to somewhere way beyond that I'd ever been before, out to someone called the Elder, and they were in between us. There was, in between me and the highway, there was it was a huge long space. It was probably about 800 meters of just open land. And there was a mule encampment, and mules are these people who are...
I thought you meant, like, donkey horse babies.
No, they are not good people. They are not cute little donkey people. They are people who are addicted to delivering things. They're addicted to the likes that you get from delivering things. They're addicted to the oxytocin that you get from delivering things, and feeling like
they're NPC players.
Feeling like, I think the way that it was described in game is like they feel such a such a sense of pride about their work, and that like the world could not possibly run if they didn't exist. So they just steal people's cargo to try and deliver it themselves and get those likes for themselves. It's very strange. But there was a mule encampment in between there, and then there's also a couple of really big rocky cliffs with this really tight canyon, like kind of crescent-shaped canyon. And here I was in my truck with 250 odd kilos worth of delivered goods to move, and there's no way I could have moved that stuff on foot. That's why I had to steal the truck. And instead of trying to drive around it, because I was like, God damn it, this delivery has taken me at least 20 minutes to get down this far. I don't want to go all the way around. I just want to, let's try and find a place that I can maybe jump. And so, because all of the cars have boosters, and I was like, so I can do this, so it'll be fine. Because all of them have like a little jump button, and they all have boosters. So I was like, sweet, I've got this. I did not have.
I mean, that does sound like cars are improved.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing is like,
you just fucking stacked it.
Absolutely stacked it. I stacked it so hard. All of my shit came crashing out. The truck was
fantastic.
There's no way I was going to be able to get the truck out, so I had to. Not only did I have to fight off a pack of about 10 mules who came down with their big sticks to try and steal all of my shit. But then I had to trudge it back and forth, and I made about 3 or 4 trips to deliver everything. And it was just like, I was like, God damn it.
God, this is the Uber Eats experience in a fucking nutshell.
I was like, I am never ever trying to take the shortcut ever again. You have taught me a powerful, valuable lesson this day.
Video games are a learning experience.
But that feels like a thing I've done in real life, like many times, where I try to
carry too much shit in your grocery or whatever.
All the shit, or there's been multiple times in my life where I've gotten severely lost taking shortcuts I thought were shortcuts and are not. Always on foot too, because I don't drive, so it's always been walking, and that makes it so much worse.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a
fantastic.
That is a key. That is a cornerstone of life experience right there.
Death Stranding is a very intriguing and interesting video game, and I recommend maybe if you're like Hope, maybe don't check it out. You might get annoyed.
I will never play it.
It's something to.
I will dip my toes in it at some point.
I would actually be very keen to hear what Patrick has to say about it, because it is rife with anime bullshit. Rife.
See, that kind of stuff makes me want to play it. I know the kind of person I am. I know the kind of game this is. And I don't like to do things to myself that are going to hurt.
It requires
that much.
Patience, and I think that's probably the thing that most that a lot of gamers will struggle with, is that it requires a little bit of patience and.
It's funny though, because I'm an incredibly patient person, but not when it comes to video games.
I'm just curious if the loop of it can overcome the bullshit of it, which apparently is rife. So
yeah, well,
not just the anime bullshit, but just the writing bullshit, the literary bullshit. You know what I mean?
There is a considerable amount of bullshit that I don't know. It's hard for me to, because I haven't seen the full story yet. I don't know how much of it I'm missing at this point. I still feel like I'm in the beginning third of this game.
It's just I don't know. Kojima kind of has a I just soured on Metal Gear 5 so badly
that was an unfinished game.
He's kind of Well, yeah, I know, but his name is all over. You know what I mean?
That's not me absolving him of his sins in the slightest. That was an unfinished game.
Yeah.
But aren't you ashamed of your thoughts and words?
No, words and deeds.
Not at all.
Words and deeds.
Not at all. Anyway, Death Stranding. I like it, and I will probably talk about it again sometime in the future, because I'm going to be taking my time with this one.
Sounds like
fantastic.
you have to.
Well, I mean, look, I tell you what, I'm glad I didn't play it for review. That would have been stressful. Stressful as hell. Oh my gosh. It's a game that you want to spend an hour with at a time. I mean, unless you're crazy like me and go and spend 8 with it for whatever reason. Patrick, Minecraft Earth.
Yep.
Tell us all about
so Minecraft Earth. Yeah, so Minecraft Earth has actually been in like beta or early access or whatever in New Zealand, Australia, because that's where you launch all your AR bullshit or your mobile bullshit.
Because we have
so Minecraft
all
Earth,
the tech.
Yeah, Minecraft Earth is the, I don't know, Pokemon Go, Wizards Unite, that sort of like AR map, walk around in real life and use your phone to do stuff game, but for Minecraft, basically. And I think the interesting element of it is that the walking around stuff is for two things, for like resources and for dungeons, which is also for resources. And you use those resources and then you bring them into the game, which is where the AR elements sort of come up, and it's like you slap like a plate down onto a flat surface on the world, like a digital plate, and then you just start building on that plate in the same way that you would in a Minecraft game. So you just start plopping down blocks or whatever. And it's very intuitive if you've played Minecraft before. I have no idea how it feels if you haven't, but here's the interesting thing, like lots of people can join in on that session and it's pretty smooth. So the way that I saw this was I actually went to a PR event for it, so this is not, entirely of my own volition in that sense, but like, I went up and had this sort of like, it wasn't completely guided in the way that apparently it was at E3 because they like customized the whatever. This was on the live like servers basically, because by the time I went it had launched in the US, it had launched in wherever, and actually the director was there and he told me that they had actually been pirated in a number of countries, and because of the way that their stuff is algorithmically generated instead of like, so Pokemon Go and Wizards Unite and stuff are based off Ingress, which is based off user created data from a game previous. So this one is actually algorithmically generated based on like a bunch of open map stuff, based on tagging and things like that.
Interesting.
So it will like just start plopping down things like trees and pigs and whatever all over the place and dungeons and stuff like that.
Okay, so what is the purpose of building the things?
That is sort of the thing, right? Like the only purpose of building the thing right now is to build the thing. Like that's it. It's like a sort of
in the thing with your phone. Can you do that?
Yeah, maybe like if you have an iPhone, it's got some sort of occlusion thingy-majig, so you can like take a picture of your friend and then you can like first you'll have that like small scale one, and then you press a button and it pops up and it's like suddenly it's like large scale as if you're on like the floors and stuff like that. Now the fun thing about that is that it really works on a single Z level, but then once you start thinking about stairs and drops and things like that, obviously you're walking around in an actual place with actual geometry, and then all that stuff just sort of it's just like, okay, you can shoot down into it, but you can't really move on that plane.
Go down to the cellar.
And it's like really cool because of the way that like you have multiple people jacked into your same AR session basically at the same time.
I love it when I've got multiple people jacked into my...
Listen, this is cyberpunk terminology. This has been current since the 90s and 80s. I'm going to use the goddamn it. But like I was wandering around Hyde Park with a bunch of like PR people and another journalist or two, and we're just sort of like looking up, like we're just getting weird stares from everyone as we wander around in this phone pack, like looking up and down at the floor and shit, and be like, skeletons, oh my god, diamonds, redstone, get the redstone, whatever. It's actually like it's a fun and novel experience, but like Hope says, because I'm sort of out of my build random crap because I'm building on my creative pursuits are in other areas right now, so I don't really have any motivation whatsoever to do this.
That's exactly why I feel like I've never personally enjoyed Minecraft, is because I like to be creative in a lot of
different ways, right?
Ways, yeah, and I like to paint, I like to draw, I like to make music, I like to do all those kind of things, and I like to write, obviously, because someone pays me sometimes. Anyway, but it means that for me, like, Minecraft has always been like, well, why?
Yeah, I think, people come to Minecraft for different reasons, and one of the reasons that I come to Minecraft is not here, and that is the sort of weird serenity you get from exploring this randomly generated procedural world that still has, like, sort of goals, but eventually that sort of feeling will run out as well.
Yeah.
So what this only has is the building element to it. And then because of that, it's just sort of like, it's sort of like a novel factor, it's sort of like good for kids and stuff like that, I think. And there's definitely, like, there's whole servers of people who want to recreate Minas Tirith or, like, Notre Dame or whatever the hell. So they're going to get a kick out of this, especially when they start selling bigger and bigger, like, play sets or places to build stuff on or whatever.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess there'd be the novelty of putting something cool in a park.
Right. But I think, like, I can't help but compare it to Pokemon Go, obviously, because Pokemon Go was the de jure, it's sort of the standard by which all these games are going to be judged by. And the thing is, Pokemon was always the perfect franchise to match with this geocaching stuff, because it's all about collecting bullshit. And, like, collecting bullshit that is... And the other thing that they were telling me, and they were kind of proud of this, and I was like, I'm not sure that's the right... But they're sort of like, okay, there's no actual difference between, like, for instance, Sydney and Johannesburg, or, like, a random rural farm in the middle of nowhere, which is good in one sense, because, like,
it means
players
that people
of Pokemon...
don't miss out.
Right, players of Pokemon Go who were rural and who couldn't travel somewhere else, obviously, were, like, not having the time of their lives. But it also kind of removes any impetus for this game to be, like...
It's exciting going somewhere in Pokemon Go. Like, when I traveled to America, I played Pokemon Go a lot because I could, like, get the Pokestops that were specifically American and send them to my dad. Or, like, cache the region exclusives and things like that.
Yeah.
There's the excitement going somewhere new.
There's a definite novelty to that sort of thing as well.
And I recognise that this game doesn't necessarily have to go after the exact same market, but it's just difficult not to compare them in that sense.
You feel like there's got to be something that they have to latch onto.
I
don't feel like just log on and build a thing is...
It doesn't feel like enough.
I think I don't think it will last, but I think it might be enough to have, like, a surge, because I didn't think it either until I got the hands-on, I guess. And then once you're actually building stuff, and then, like, they're showing us the stuff that they built before. Obviously, in one of these demo sessions, I can't, like, okay, I've planned out this whatever. But I think people will be interested in making these creations and then, like, sort of plopping them down and seeing them, and they've got, like, okay, the promise of the roadmap is like, oh, we'll have once you have these ones and you vet them by Microsoft, whatever, we can add them to this single shared persistent world. And they've got, like, they've thought a lot safety and anti-griefing and all this other stuff, and they were like player built cities of, like, creations, like the canon world sort of stuff, and that's kind of cool. But it's definitely in the sort of, like, oh, we'll see how it rolls out. And it's definitely not made that, like, it's out of beta, it's in early access or whatever in various regions, but it definitely has not made a Pokemon Go style splash.
I suppose it's definitely still... there's still questions to be asked of it, it would seem, at this point. So it's not completed its full rollout yet?
It was only out in North America. It was out in, like, 7 countries or something. So it was out... North America was the day that I saw it, basically, so it was just spinning up. But even then, I wasn't seeing a lot of chatter.
And is that the final release? Like,
no, it's, like, some early access... everything's in roadmap version for the rest of the time, so who knows. But it's definitely...
service.
Yeah.
Video games are never going to be finished ever again.
But talking of a game that has been finished and has been for about 2 decades at this point.
You've also been playing Symphony of the Night, Castlevania.
Symphony of the Night, So I got Game Pass for Outer Worlds, and part of Game Pass at the moment is Bloodstained, which is Igarashi's new project.
A lot of people love that game, man.
And I started playing it, and I was like, oh, I actually quite like this a lot. And then I was just like, but I should really play Symphony of the Night first, because
that's what it's, like, based on, right?
Yeah. And I've played Castlevania 1 and 2. I've played a couple of the DS ones as well. But I was just like, oh, this is a real gap in my knowledge, I guess. And I want to see what... Because everyone always is like, oh, it's... Well, I mean, the genre is now called Metroidvania, right? Like, I've played Super Metroid, but I haven't played the Castlevania. So I was like, okay, let's, it's like $12 on, Symphony of the Night isn't $12. Dracula X is $12 on Vita or whatever the fuck. So I dragged that out. I played that, and the fun thing about Dracula X is that it actually has Rondo of Blood and Symphony of the Night hidden inside it.
Oh, that's cool.
Like the original versions of those games. So I played through like 3 or 4 levels of Dracula X, and it was just like, this game is terrible. This game is so bad. And then just started playing Symphony of the Night, which I'm liking a lot better than Dracula X, but it's kind of interesting going to it because I can see where all the praise comes from, because it's a 1997 game.
Yeah,
and
but
in
it
many
does
ways
feel like a 1997 game, right?
it feels like a 1997 game in some ways, and it feels like Metroidvanias haven't deviated hugely from its design. Like, you see how influential it was in those design elements, because those design elements still feel current.
Yep.
And that is largely in the map design, I think. Like, the design of the way that you explore the world, right?
That's kind of where the name of the genre comes from, isn't it? Though, like that
Yeah.
whole sort of unlocking,
that whole getting
gate, like
a gun that takes down the door,
item
that gets
gated
you into a new area.
sections, and
Well, I feel like the item gating is much more closely tied to Metroid, because that is very
that's what Metroid
they're very explicit
is,
about, like, you've got the gravity boots, you've got the whatever, gravity suit, Varia suit, whatever. But and that is true in Castlevania, because Castlevania is like, oh, you've got this new form, you can turn into a bat and that can fly up here or whatever
to access different areas.
Right. Well, I mean, it's the same essential thing. They're just like keys that give you abilities, really. But I think Metroid makes a bigger deal about it than Castlevania does for whatever reason. But I think that the thing is with Castlevania is that it also has the bits of Castlevania 1 and 2 that I really don't like, which is that it is brutally, annoyingly hard in some ways.
It's crazy difficult, yeah.
Yeah, and Symphony of the Night is a lot less difficult and I can feel that because I'm not save scumming my way through the game like I did with 1 and 2, because those games are stupid. But, like, it is still just sort of like, oh, this is pointlessly annoying for no reason. Like, things like that. Like, you have to equip an item, to use, like, a potion, you have to equip it in one hand, then you have to use it, but to use it, you throw it out in front of you if it's a food item, and then you have to go get it, and sometimes you just get knocked off of a cliff or some bullshit, and you're like, okay.
That's so stupid! I love it.
It's real dumb. It's 1997. But, like, you know, like, the big twist of Castlevania, right? Of Symphony of the Night specifically, right? Which is the inverted castle.
The phone call was coming from in the house the entire time.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, the upside down phone call. So that actually is... I was thinking about it, I was like, this is an amazing way to do New Game Plus, because that's what it feels like to me.
I thought that was the point in it. Like, it gives you something to go back to. Yeah,
it's like a 200% complete or whatever the hell. But it's like sort of positions it more, because it's a continuation of the story, so it's sort of like, oh, this is actually the second half of the game and you have to do this to beat the thing. But what it actually feels like to me is a New Game Plus, because you're going through the game again, but like new enemies all over the place, and the geography is like familiar but completely different because it's upside down. And like, that is actually a super cool way of doing that.
It's crazy clever,
Yeah, because, you know, most New Game Pluses are just like directly...
Yeah, do the game again, but now you got some items or whatever.
Yeah, the things I really don't like, though, is that there's a lot of bullshit which you just have to look up in an FAQ, because you're just like, how the fuck are you supposed to know that?
Yeah, too obscure.
Good old games. Grab the second book from the left and then take it to the blue door in the room that was up above the door with the spikes.
There's like, oh, you were missing this, like, this whole area of the castle was locked off to me because I couldn't find the, like, breathing underwater relic, and then it's like, okay, to get the breathing underwater relic, you have to cross the ferry, get this thing, go back to this other area, destroy a brick that like doesn't look like it's destroyable, and then you can do the thing. And I was like, okay, cool, great.
You gotta games. Call those sexy ladies on the game help hotline on the back of your little booklet.
It's on the back of the game box, Snake.
Yeah, they'll help you out.
That one's cool, actually, though. I like that one. Yeah, I don't know. It's a pretty good game. I think I like Super Metroid more, but yeah, it's like, I see why it's the foundation for this genre. I can't say I love playing it, though.
I had a really similar experience when I played Ocarina of Time for the first time. Like, just had that sensation of, wow, everything stems from this, and I can see it all clearly.
Yeah.
Everything big is a small version of everything big.
I think when I played Bloodstained,
that's definitely
was when I realised that I didn't enjoy those types of games. Because, obviously, Bloodstained is apparently quite good. And I played through a whole bunch of it. And I didn't feel that in the slightest. But then I also think that's just because I'm not a platformer guy.
Well, I'm not really a platformer person either, but there's something about the Metroidvanias and that exploration loop that I quite like. I think, in good ones, anyway.
I think maybe that was what frustrated me with Bloodstained, and what sort of frustrates me in general with these games is that, like, I don't mind... I like the initial exploration, but then being forced to have to go back through those sections is what gets me.
I find that so satisfying, personally.
It's just like, I've done this before, like, kill me.
It's like expertise, right, Hope?
If it does it too much, yeah, but a lot of the time you get so good at those sections that you can blitz through them.
I think that's actually... Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that's
it lets
a part
you measure
of it.
your skill.
That must be a part of it, right? Like, that must be...
Well,
your increased knowledge of the area is going to help you get through whatever...
And it's your increased abilities as well.
Right.
Well,
I think that's sort of the interesting thing, though, in thinking about Super Metroid versus Castlevania, which is like Super Metroid, you upgrade stuff, but you don't have explicit stats in the same way that you do in Castlevania. Like, Castlevania, you literally have, like, defense, attack, whatever. And, like, I don't find it as satisfying to hit a thing until you level up and then you can hit a thing better. Like, it's much cooler that your knowledge of how to play the game is higher.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So
Did you
that's
ever play Outer
much more
Wilds?
satisfying in, like... I'm going to next, I think.
play that game. If you get super excited by, like...
It's a very Patrick game.
If you get into the idea of, like, your skill check being your knowledge, play Outer Wilds.
And your actual skills, but yes. No, I've been hearing so many good things about it, and I'm just sort of like, well, I can't get this on Game Pass. I might just buy it on the Epic Store, I guess.
Why can't
Whatever.
you get it on Game Pass? Oh,
it's not on Game Pass PC.
It's on Xbox Game Pass, yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I played it, but I did it streaming to my PC, so I keep thinking it's on PC Game Pass, but it's not.
No such luck here.
No.
Okay.
Right.
What's next on the docket?
Next is me. I put Gears 5 up there real in the quickies, because I probably only played a couple hours of it. But I have finally started playing Gears 5. Woo! So far, it definitely it feels like a Gears game. I haven't noticed anything. I haven't gotten into, like, there's apparently, like, an open worldy bit, and I'm not quite there yet. But, the shooting still feels good. The weapons are still pretty cool. Like, you get your cool ones to play with, and then you run out of ammo, and you have to give them up forever and cry. At one point, it made me get rid of my Chainsaw Lancer for a different Lancer, and I was real mad because I am a Chainsaw Lancer diehard, because why wouldn't you love a gun with a chainsaw on it? And then the Chainsaw Lancer...
Obviously.
Right?
It's got a fucking chainsaw.
It had... Right! It had, but the new Lancer had this alternate fire mode, which, like, just exploded enemies. I was like, I guess that makes up for not being a chainsaw. But...
Fantastic.
Yeah. The thing that I do like about it so far is it hasn't felt as whiny as 4 did yet. So 4 felt like really like, we are the teenagers and we're gonna go on an adventure and I don't care about anything because my mum's been taken and that's all I care about. I'm gonna be stupid. And
it's like Gears emo.
It hasn't had that. It's felt kind of pragmatic so far, and it's also had like meetings with the higher up. So like there's like the woman who's like essentially the president, I guess, and you've actually met her face to face in this one, and she's talked to you about past choices, and she's a bit of a douchebag in the way that people in power tend to be, I guess. But it felt less like we're just like rebelling against nothing for no good reason, and more like there are hard choices and they've had to be made. I don't know. I felt like it's conveying that a lot better.
Cool.
But that's about it. I haven't played enough to talk any more about.
Fair enough.
Zoos.
Yes, I've been playing Planet Zoo. Played a whole bunch of Planet Zoo.
Yeah, you dashed my hopes on this one. Apparently, I kind of wanted to play it because I'm after a tycoon game. And
it's totally fine. It is a perfectly competent management sim.
Tycoon game?
It's actually really detailed. Its biggest problem is that a lot of the detail is couched in a really bloated UI, and a lot of the building stuff, which is the very sort of foundation of these games, like designing your park and making it look amazing, is just an exercise in frustration. Absolute.
Is it just like the road building tools?
Especially the road building tools suck all the ass. Oh my god, it is absolutely fucked. I hated it.
Thanks, Hope.
You're welcome.
That was terrible. That was almost as bad. Look, I don't hate the game. My review's going to be up on GameSpot sometime soon. It actually might be up by the time that this comes out. It's not up right at the moment as we record this, but I think it'll go up tonight. So you can go and read some more detailed thoughts on it there. But
cool.
It's fine. It's a 100% fine. If you can get around those little frustrations, then you'll probably have a really good time. The animals are gorgeous. The animals are super cute, and they're probably the biggest part that I really liked about it, because I actually felt like some kind of weird connection with them. Like I wanted to make a good park so that they were looked after and well fed. But then the building tools just fucked it. Which is really frustrating, because they generally...
That's really
Frontier
sad.
generally do a really good job of these sorts of games. Planet Coaster was fine, although it also had a similar problem, I suppose, with the roads. Although I don't remember Jurassic Park Evolution... What's that game called? Jurassic Park Evolution?
The Jurassic Park simulator thingy that was recent.
I reviewed that game.
I heard it was okay, but...
I reviewed that game. I should know what it was called.
I reviewed that game. I can't remember what it's called either.
I think it was called Jurassic Park Evolution.
It's Yes, it was.
I think it was Evolution. Yeah.
And that...
Because you had
that was good.
Bit where you could make... But, I mean, to be fair, you didn't really... In that game, my recollection of it anyway, you didn't really build much.
No, you didn't really have to, I suppose. Like, you just...
Yeah.
You just... it was all sort of long and sprawling and very flat, because you're playing with dinosaurs.
And you didn't have much opportunity to build, because... it was kind of already set. Like, you could put things down, but there was only so many options because of the way the environment was.
Because of the career mode and that sort of thing. And I mean, this Planet Zoo has career modes where you have scenarios you can play in, but you can also start your own zoos, and it also has this online mode, which is slightly kind of interesting, but also slightly convoluted and not so friendly to newer players. I don't know. It's go and read my review on GameSpot. It's at least worth checking that out.
Kind of sounds like a sale game to me.
Definitely.
Okay.
And you've been playing around with you've been still playing game dev, playing around with Game Maker
still
2.
packing away at Game Maker. Devtober is over, so I've just sort of slowed on that front, but...
I thought you were going to be like, so I quit.
Well, I mean, that's usually how it goes, but I just sort of slowed instead, and that's actually been pretty good, because I've been able to do the long-term stuff that doesn't give a lot of visual results, but is actually like really necessary for the foundational basis of the game. So before I was doing stuff like... Yeah, basically. So before I was... it's kind of like a beat-em-up platformer, I guess, at this point, but I don't know. It's sort of... Yeah,
Let
exactly.
me play your game, Patrick. That'll be nice. I promise.
Hate platformers. I hate platformers, so...
I like
but no, it's really interesting because I was doing... I'm doing what's called tile-based collisions, and so normally I was... Before, and what I've always done is object-based collisions, where you actually have objects in the game, but... once you get past like 1,000 objects or something, it starts to significantly slow the game speed. And I was like, well, I'm not near that, but like if I do this early stuff, I can really, speed up performance later in the game and not have this kind of problems. Sure. So I was doing that, and then I was just sort of like, oh, actually, fucking slopes are impossible to do. Like, I had to doing single box collisions is actually fairly easy because it's just like X and Y set to 0, whatever. But then once you start moving into like, oh, now you have to move up and down slopes, but now you've got these rounded corners or whatever the fuck. And then it's just like, okay, now you need to make a height map, store everything in an array, and make it so that all the coding works in like all these other different ways. And then I was just sort of, as this was going on, like the whole Pokemon Game Freak Live bullshit Twitter crap was coming out, and everyone's just like, oh, look, the shadow's jaggy. I'm like, shut the fuck up. You don't know anything about game dev. Do you know how hard it is?
Oh my
like,
god,
holy
you guys,
shit.
why are you so stupid?
Fucking Sonic figured this shit out in like 98, but actually like to try and reinvent any of this crap for like my simple game dev projects has taken me 3 days. I don't know the math. What is happening? Game dev is hard. Leave game devs alone. Fuck off.
Yep.
Like holy shit.
I'll
keep plugging away at that. I think.
I truly believe that if you ever find yourself being an asshole about video games like that online, there are 2 things you should do, and one of them is try to make a game. And the other one is play Game Dev Tycoon.
Seriously.
I love Game Dev Tycoon.
Because Game Dev Tycoon you find yourself suddenly pumping out Soulless sequels because you know they'll make
That's
money.
true.
And you're like, you need it. You need it to make the other thing that you actually want to
Holy
make.
shit.
Like,
You need it to
That's
make your
so
artsy
true.
game.
yeah.
It's so
I-
fun.
As soon as that happened, I was like, oh,
I've become what I hate.
I understand so much.
It's like this fucking
And, like-
galaxy brain moment.
Yeah.
I think the thing I hate most about the Pokemon bullshit right now is that it's drowning the legit criticism of Pokemon, which is like I honestly felt Sun and Moon was a very mediocre entry, and sort of I felt that about the last couple of Pokemon games. But at the same time, I'm just sort of like, but these fucking Dexiters, go fuck yourselves.
Yeah.
like Christ.
There are plenty of reasons to, like, maybe not like newer Pokemon games, but this is just not one of them.
Mm.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Yep, that's video
That's
games.
Video games. So we don't have because we've just been.
We're just fucking just talking about video games.
And I haven't
It's also
had much of a
because-
PC really, except for like since last week when I got this fucking thing. We haven't.
Hey, you got like 8 PCs
We haven't.
in one.
I know. My PC's
You got a beast.
Beast, and I love it.
Literal beast. Shout out to
It's
PCPB.
beautiful. Yes, I know PC Power Play. Long live PC Power Play. We don't have much news, although Hope managed to watch some of the XO19 stuff, which we figured we should just have a really quick
Really
touch on,
quick.
because I
Yeah,
didn't
I
watch
can-
any of it, and I don't know anything about the
I
Neither.
can zoom through
so
these
yeah,
if
tell
you
us
let
tell
me.
us about
Blast.
some of the games that you've pointed out. in
So
your
I've
note.
just listed the things that were kind of new. There's some other notable stuff, but whatever. This is the new
It's
stuff. The first one was Grounded, which is Obsidian, and it's basically Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. So you
That
become
looked
these
great.
tiny people.
I saw
running
like
through,
a screenshot and I was like hype,
Yeah, it looks like it's cooperative.
even though I was already disappointed in their last game.
And like it looks like a game no one wants. Like it looks, I could kind of hear the crowd like groan, like new game from Obsidian, and then it's this toy weird thing where you're little people, but it'll probably be fun. Then Rare showed off Everwild, which there wasn't a lot about it, but it's this really beautiful looking game.
Okay.
It looks like it's a third person sort of maybe adventure or RPG kind of thing, and it's just set in this like magical looking fantasy sort of land. Like there were these deer with these big antlers that were like flowers.
Oh, I think I
that, like,
might have actually seen
Oh,
a
okay,
little
cool.
bit of this. It was kind of like the
Yeah.
flat shaded sort of texture, almost kind of Fortnite-y look.
It
to
did have that. A lot of the games had that Fortnite look to me. Like they had their chunky graphics and those flat.
They might be
textures.
sharing, I don't know, expertise or an engine or something.
It
at the
could
point,
be.
who
I think
knows?
it's also just fashionable at the moment. People,
That's true.
Fortnite's so popular, so if the game looks a little bit like it, other people might be drawn towards it. But we don't know much about Everwild yet, but to me it looks really pretty and it's rare, so that's pretty cool.
That's true. They did. What was their last game? Sea of
Sea
Thieves
of
or whatever.
Thieves, yeah.
They really picked up on that after a disappointing launch.
They announced more content for that as well, so they're continuing to support that, so that's cool. I've always wanted to play Sea of Thieves, but I don't want to play it by myself, and I've never
mate,
found a
let's
group.
play sometime. I love Sea of Thieves.
Let's play Sea of Thieves?
Absolutely. Sea of Thieves
Yeah.
is awesome.
Oh, sweet. I've never played. I've got it on both the Game Passes, so
Sweet.
I'm wherever
Fantastic.
you want me to be.
So it's actually cross-play. So I can, it's cross-play.
what?
I can play on the Xbox,
Huh.
and everyone else can be on the PC if you want.
That's
I could do
sweet.
that.
Nice.
Tell me
Another
why.
announcement was Tell Me Why. That's Don't Nod. So that's
Yeah.
Life is Strange people. That looks like another Life is Strange style game. One of the protagonists is a trans man. But then I read something that they do not have anyone trans actually working on the game.
Interesting.
So, but they did a lot of consulting with trans people.
Yeah,
Apparently,
we'll
I hope it's good.
see how that plays out. I don't want to get into a thing about that at this stage.
Yeah,
but
it's hard to know,
weird.
but it was kind of
It's weird.
disappointing that question got asked and their answer seemed really roundabout. Then there's Wasteland 3, so another Wasteland. Woo! I don't know much about Wasteland.
I'm kind of
Kartrider Drift. Kartrider Drift is
What's
interesting.
Kartrider
because
Drift?
It's a kart racer. It's incredibly popular in Korea. It's like an actual career, not
I
Korea.
asked about this on Twitter. I was like, "What the like this must be that game that I saw that I was
So-
like, what is this fucking kart game?"
It's a proper esport.
That's
It's-
Oh,
wild.
fantastic.
It's my understanding of it anyway is that it's one of those games where you have to know the courses. There's all these little secret little things that you can do to go faster or skip things and things like that. Okay. So it's going to be quite a high barrier to entry for new players because they're not going to know anything.
That's kind of interesting, given the kart racer market.
It's a proper competitive kart racer. It's not your Mario Kart, like it kind of is, but it's also very much not. That's meant to say West of Dead. This one I really liked. Yeah, it's meant to be of.
Of Dead. Okay.
I accident-y. So this one is like a cell shaded game, and you play as a guy who looks like Ghost Rider. He's got a skull that's on fire.
Sweet.
And it's like a Western style game. It looked like it was sort of a top down isometric style shooter kind of. But it has a real style about it, which I found enjoyable. So
cool.
It looked very, very stark color contrasting and things like that.
Yep.
Drake Hollow it's like a shared thing where you build villages with people in this sort of mirror world. I don't remember a lot about it, to be honest.
That's an intriguing sentence.
That's a good sentence, but we'll see if it pops up again.
The last stop I actually don't remember absolutely anything about, so that's fantastic. Is that even a thing, or did I just write those words? Did somebody else write those words? Oh wait, no, here it is. It's by Variable State. It's a single third-person adventure set in present-day London, where you play as 3 different characters whose worlds are colliding in a supernatural crisis.
Okay.
So it's all these
Could
3
be about the
stories
tube, I
that
guess.
are sort
I
of
don't know.
intertwining.
It's a video game.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it seems like it's trying to be like Hell Story based though. The Artful Escape is one that I am actually knowing about and generally excited about. It's you might have seen like the bright coloured sort of thing with the guitar, and he's like sort of moving across these like wild looking levels. It looks like an acid trip.
No, that sounds rad.
So the people who developed it are called Beethoven and Dinosaur, and when they showed their logo, like when they said developed by, they didn't say Beethoven Dinosaur. They had like Beethoven's face and a T-Rex.
Awesome.
And so my brain was like, Ludwig Rex? Like, is that what they're called? Like, I totally didn't I had to look it up to find out who actually made them.
I like Ludwig Rex though. That's good.
Yeah, I was like, that's a rad name. I was so excited, and then it wasn't even that.
I'll use that in an RPG sometime.
It's it looks like one of those games that's just going to be like a real like feast for the senses. Like whether or not it's actually great to play is going to be another thing, but it looks wild and it's got really cool music to it. So if absolutely everything else fills in a hole, it's got that. The other thing I wanted to highlight was pretty much all the Final Fantasy games are coming to Game Pass, I think is what they said.
Wow. All right.
And the Yakuza.
I want to double check that. And Yakuza's are finally coming to Xbox, which is really exciting.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Final Fantasy series joins Xbox Game Pass, and Kingdom Hearts Classics are also coming.
Oh, okay.
So pretty much all the Final Fantasy games. Was Yakuza Game Pass, or was that just coming to Xbox?
I saw that it was coming to Xbox. I don't think it was Game Pass.
Yeah, I don't think it was Game Pass. I just had it there because
which is a bit of a pity, but yeah. No, that's cool.
But yeah, so really cool Japanese games that we've always associated with Sony and PlayStation are starting to finally make their way to the Xbox, which I like because it means that maybe I don't have to buy both consoles next year.
That is intriguing. One thing that is not on the list that I haven't told any of you about, but I just remembered also, and it's also a little bit of news, possibly, but it might not be
What's
anything,
up?
but I want to mention it anyway. Some bright spark on Twitter has noticed the what was the team that made Firewatch? That's right,
Campo
yes.
Santo.
That they were, you might remember that they were picked up by Valve.
Yeah, they were picked up by
and they
Valve.
were working
Yeah, all
on a
that's-
game called In the Valley of the Gods. And that name has now mysteriously disappeared from all of their Twitter bios. And there
ruh-roh.
is
I saw that
there's
one.
a little bit of talk that perhaps that was cancelled. There's no actual
I th-
news or reports around that
Yeah.
yet.
Because that should have been out by
but-
now, really.
Well, I think Valve is such a black box. It's really hard to tell, and they're
Like a
not.
black
They're a
hole.
place that indefinitely
No,
shelves
that's true.
things, rather than cancels them. So
So there's a whole bunch of rumors flying around. Some people I think that like some people are like, oh, the team has been pulled from that and is now working on like Half-Life
3.
VR or whatever the
They're
fuck is
just
coming
like
out.
they're just
Well,
making more.
that is
skins
actually
for
that is
Dota 2.
legitimately the rumor right now.
Imagine Campo Santo working on Half-Life 3. Fuck off.
Well, I mean, Chris Remo, who works at Campo Santo, is worked on Dota Underlords, so they just literally just grab people and put them on what. I mean, they go and work on whatever, if their distributed model or whatever the fuck is true. They just go off and work on whatever the hell they feel like. So it might be that they just chose.
That just sounds like
certainly,
a really cool job.
Well, it isn't right, because like the net thing is that Valve hasn't really made any fucking games in a while.
Yeah.
So people are just so like the internet, Valve used to be the de jure of the internet, and now for some reason they've almost become like the hated like overlords of the internet.
All they do
Part
is
of that is
sell
owning a
games on
massive platform
Steam
as
and,
well.
like,
But
swim in their pile of
They've
money.
become the City 17
but-
of video games.
I don't know. Certainly people who looked at it and are like speculating wildly are definitely like, oh my god, Campo Santo is dead or whatever. But like the actual people on the team are like, can you maybe not do this? It's really rude. And
Please
like,
don't
that's-
call us dead.
Yeah, and that's like all the response I've seen out of them. So, I mean, clearly they're not talking about the game, and maybe they're not surfacing it right now. But like, whether that means it's dead, like, and does it matter? Like, it'll go out when it's out, and before it's out, like, who cares? Well, not who cares, but like, what are you going to do? You're going to play? You're not going to not play it? It'll still be a preview. Like,
It's kind of frustrating to get excited for something and then it looks like it's not happening, but you don't have any news though. Like you'd think from a PR perspective, you'd want to take control of that story.
I think that is true, and Valve is very, very bad at that. But,
which they have
like,
proven demonstrably in the past multiple
Yeah.
times over.
I think at this point I'm just sort of like, okay, this is just what happens to a Valve game. It disappears and either it reappears or just dies. Like, just is never mentioned again. And it might pop up at some point, it might not,
Indeed.
who knows. Left 4 Dead 3, come on, do it.
God, wouldn't that be good?
I would really like one, it would be nice.
What was that
How would they?
game that has a Left 4 Dead 2 tie-in?
Did
Did anyone else see that?
I don't know.
I didn't hallucinate that, did I?
Yeah, you're right. It was recent. I forget what it was, though.
There's definitely a game that had...
It's not coming to me. It was some sort of zombie killer as well. I don't know. Yeah.
Anyway. News.
We don't do research on this
Video
podcast.
game news. We don't do much research on...
Research.
That's
No.
for sure.
No, we just do what we remember.
We just play the video
Yep.
games. Hey, look, there's plenty of other people who do the news, and that is fine. We'll talk about a little bit of it because it's all small talk.
I am... Yeah, but let's talk about some new releases.
Hey.
Obviously, there's the Pokemons. There's that Ring Fit Adventure, which I am actually super keen to try at some
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, I
really want to try that.
I got one. I played like the first thing that you can do, and it was actually pretty cool. Like you jog on the spot to move forward, and you puff bursts of air out. So if you're aiming at the ground, you jump.
I hear that thing is pretty tough.
Yeah.
I've been hearing really good reports, honestly, from people who are like
I tried to
all
crush
over
it,
the exercise map.
and
so.
like I'm clearly like
Wow.
Rough as fuck.
totally gonna
cut.
anyway. It does actually tell me that my level of crushing is like hard.
Nice.
So
Nice.
clearly
Nice.
not the wussiest. But yeah, it looks fun. It looks like the kind of thing that I could see myself loading up to try to get through the story and using it. To me, the main things it lacks, and it's dumb, but I wish it worked with the Wii Fit, like the balance board or something like that.
That'd be kind of fun, yeah.
Something that
if
can
it
actually
had the
measure
backwards
your like,
compatibility
weight
stuff.
as well, so it could input it automatically and track yourself. Like that's what I liked about the Wii Fit. I like seeing my numbers go up or down, like preferably down.
Verify that shit.
Unless it's a fuck ton of muscle. Whoa!
Hell yeah. Get
But-
the smoothies in you.
Yeah, I think it's cute. I think it's good. I don't know if it's gonna be enough to have people coming back to it. I think a lot of people are gonna have Ring Fits that they never use, but that's the way of this
Maybe.
tech.
Yeah. Anyone thinking about that Jedi game?
I have it on...
About them old
Yeah,
Fallen
so
Order?
I've got a copy of it on PC, which I haven't...
Is that
loaded
one
up yet,
on
but
EA Access by
it's-
any chance?
I don't know.
It is if you've got the premium subscription.
I bought it on Steam.
Okay, well, I might just get it, and if it, I don't know, if I can find a good deal or something. We'll see how it. I don't know. It's been getting decentish stuff. I like Star Wars a whole bunch. I like the
People
Bloodborne,
seem to say that
Soulsborne
it's
I've
stuff.
been hearing
kind
I
of
like
the
Metroidvanias.
worst Souls game they've ever
I'm
played,
hearing
but
mixed
because
reports.
it's got
but for that
Star Wars.
for that reason, Hope.
Yeah, exactly.
Like saying, it doesn't really stack up to the Soulsborne parts, but then it's got really strong storytelling.
What does,
exactly.
Like, I'm kind of curious.
If it's not coming out of the same stable, like it's just sort of their interpretation on it, which doesn't mean, obviously, it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but whatever. Shenmue 3 is fucking out soon.
What?
Shenmue 3.
November 19.
Okay. That's a weird sentence.
It's also like
sentence.
You're looking forward to forklifts?
Not good from everything everyone's been saying. It's not a good
You ready
time.
to look for some sailors?
I'm looking forward to seeing the reviews for that one.
What else is on the horizon?
I'm actually looking at that Sniper Ghost Warrior contracts game because those sniper games aren't. They're like just a good bit of mindless, usually Nazi killing action. I don't know if this will be Nazi killing, but
I do love a game where I get to kill Nazis. It's incredibly cathartic.
Yes, indeed.
That's true. That's always
and then
some
as
good
far
shit.
as December goes, there's really only one game that I'm looking at in December. Oh no, actually maybe two, and that is MechWarrior 5, which is due for December 10, and then Watam, which is
That's true.
yes, it's the from the guy who made what are those games? Don't remember what they're called. Katamari. Yes, he made Katamari.
What's the bloody one where you go to the moon? You go to space. No, well, yes, you do that in that one as well.
This is
The one where you have
it's
two
like
ends
the
of the
big
thing.
Sort of, it's like the drawings and stuff.
Nobu Boy. That's what I'm thinking of.
Concrete Genie. Didn't.
No, that's
No.
not what I played.
Yes.
That's
Hope
different.
played Concrete Genie last
As soon as you
episode.
mentioned the drawings and stuff, I was like, wait, what?
Don't worry. For me, December, nothing in December actually is grabbing me. If I really want some anime bullshit, I might look at Star Ocean, but
Serious.
don't know if I want that much anime bullshit.
I mean, that's a lot of anime bullshit. I might just watch some anime at that point.
Also, this doesn't have much effect on Australia, but Stadia is launching soon, and I'll be keenly watching that because they are launching with just a pretty modest selection of games to begin with.
I've never seen it. People are trying to say that other services like Game Pass launched and they were as bad as Stadia, but that's just not true.
Yeah, I disagree.
Like, in terms of what they're offering,
It's
Stadia's
kind of funny.
offering nothing.
It's funny that the Netflix Game Pass model of pay and then get immediate access to the games has so overtaken Stadia to this point where people are just like, what, you don't get the video games? You have to buy the video games?
That's
like,
so weird to me.
There was a huge narrative that was taken up that it was just, this is the Netflix of streaming video games, and like, but
that's not what it is at all.
Never how it was sold at all. I think people just heard the word streaming,
right, but it just overtook,
exactly, and they just kind of overtook the narrative completely.
Essentially, you're renting a console on a server, and that's what you're paying for.
Yeah.
But
on that topic, I do want to mention that this was my buying a Game Pass for Outer Worlds was my first experience for it, and I just went fucking mental. I just downloaded a whole bunch of shit, and I was just like, "Oh man, I'm gonna play this," and then I played 5 seconds of it, and I was like, "This is bullshit," and took it away.
But I love that you can do that.
Yeah, it's fun. It was oh, I've always wanted to see how bad exactly Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite was. And I played it, and I was like, this is terrible.
Confirmed.
Oh, thank God I didn't have to pay that much to figure that out.
I love that you go that way with it, because I'm like, I know these games are terrible, so I'm not going to play them.
I mean, I played Bloodstained, and I was like, oh, this is actually really good, and that sort of led me on my current adventure, so it has its good points, but there was definitely just oh, I've always wanted to try this, I try it, and I'm like, oh, this is crap, just throw it away.
No, I love that there's that stress-freeness to it, you don't have to worry about paying for things, all you got to worry about is the download, and you can delete it later if you don't like it, so it's not really a big deal. And
it's definitely good on the consumer end. I just don't know how it is going to work out for everyone on the dev end, but I guess that's not really my immediate concern.
I hope that they are getting paid.
Figuring out their deals, yeah.
Yes, it'll be interesting to see when we first hear about any news about how a Game Pass style deal is affecting developers, that sort of thing. We're yet to hear any of those sorts of stories. Because I think we're still a little bit early in the the days of Game Pass and this sort of thing, but Microsoft's certainly killing it with it. I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, their services are looking very strong for next gen. I
Yeah.
think.
Absolutely.
If I was a
is-
consumer right now, the Game Pass would be a huge deciding factor for me for which console I'd get next year.
Yeah,
And it kinda
absolutely.
is.
It's also, and this is like tangentially, I suppose, related to, and only sort of affects people doing sort of the thing that we do, but it makes it a lot easier for hobbyist sort of media and folks to try a wide range of games. Because you can just get your hands on them and then try a whole bunch of
It's
stuff.
like when we all wanted to talk about the Outer
Exactly.
Worlds, for
Yeah, we all
instance.
could.
We had access to it, and it wasn't a big
It was
deal.
very good. Yeah, it was very cheap to get
Exactly.
in. So it's pretty cool.
Although, and I should probably thank them. Private Division sent me a copy to review, which was nice. They didn't have to do that because I had Game Pass, but they did anyway. So thank you for that.
They sent me one
Oh,
too.
how nice of them.
And yeah.
Um,
Which is good because it means that when my Game Pass subscription ends, if I need to look at it again, I've still got it.
Yay!
So there is that downside to Game Pass though, like, is that you don't own anything. And
That's true.
Like, that's fine for me, but I know for a lot of people they really want to like own.
Yeah, and I suppose that's going to be seeing the impact of that is sort of going to be an interesting thing moving forward as well.
It's weird thinking about it almost as a sort of extension of like a demo service or a shareware sort of thing.
Kind of,
Like,
yeah,
yeah,
I
don't know.
I almost see it as renting them. Like,
Yeah, I definitely see it closer to rental than anything else.
but
It's probably a good way to look at it, actually, especially
New
given
models.
that- yeah, I mean, you know,
because it
whatever
costs about the same as
whatever
renting.
works. Like it's really
cheaper,
exactly.
really.
Plus, you've got a whole big choice there. I don't know. It all seems to just be floating along.
But yeah,
and-
looking at the Game Pass list of games to me is kind of like going into like Video Easy and looking
Yeah.
at the list of games there and being like, oh, which one should I?
I just hope the numbers work out, I guess.
Fuck, I
You know?
hope this disc works.
who likes mangoes?
I love
Mangoes are delicious.
But I
I
think-
recommended
I love
mangoes on the
Patrick
basis
put it
that they're
up, yeah.
delicious.
That's a
I'm really
they're
excited.
strong
not-
recommendation.
Yeah, they're not at their cheapest yet, but yes, very strong
it's
recommendation. Make
so-
make a smoothie. It's fantastic. Get some ice in there. Make
Don't
a-
ruin mangoes by making things out of them. Just eat them.
Well, yeah, eat them obviously, but like sometimes you've got like a weird smoothie making thing, and you're just like, well, I could.
I'm
and
not
do
a big
it.
fan
It's
of
delicious.
summer because it's hot.
That's true.
but
I'm dying in this room right
I
now.
do
to be honest
love-
with you.
Patrick's
I
just
do
trying to
love
get it finished.
summer fruits.
Stone fruits, summer
Oh
fruits.
yeah, summer fruits, stone fruits. Like, because you get your peaches and your nectarines and your mangoes and everything tastes amazing. Then winter comes along, you're like, oh, I guess I'll eat a fucking apple. Like,
Strong opinions on fruit. Thank
You probably haven't had the king of fruits yet, so
you. Steven Universe. Who likes that?
I wanted to recommend it. I
Oh, yeah,
slept on
cool.
it for a really long time because it didn't really interest me. Like, I like...
it doesn't. It has a weird aesthetic to it, right? Which is sort of
Yeah.
like
And when you're
sort
watching
of simultaneously attractive and sort of not as attractive at the same
No,
time.
that's exactly what put me off it. But when you're watching it, the aesthetic fits in a lot better. Like,
Yeah.
whereas when you just see little bits, it's really sort of jarring. But when you actually sit down and watch it, and like the backgrounds are always so beautiful, so even if the foreground might be simplistic, it looks lazy from screenshots. But when you actually see it working, then it's not. It looks really good. But I think that, I don't know, there's something about this show, like the way it teaches lessons, I think is really good.
Yeah, it's always been curious to me why why I never even gave it a chance, I guess, because I've always been really into the the Gravity Falls, the Adventure Time sort of.
Yeah, it feels like
Its contemporaries are very big in me.
it
But
kind of feels like I love Adventure Time, and I think overall I still love Adventure Time more than I love Steven Universe. But Steven Universe feels like the lore episodes of Adventure Time most of the time, which is
Yeah,
what I really
okay.
like about it, because it's got this really in-depth background that you don't expect, but it's also just it's really sort of joyous and loving, and it's the kind
we
of
could
cartoon that
use
I
more
want.
of that.
I want every young boy in the world to grow up watching it, because it's about this young boy who's raised by all these like supernatural women and stuff, but it's just about love and care and things like that, and I think it does it in a way that isn't cliche. Instead, it's fun, and there's just something really smart about it. It also has probably one of the best TV intros of all time.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, It's a really simple little song, but there's something about that melody that has my ears all in the happy place.
I mean, it's Rebecca Sugar, right? So
Yeah,
that's
so
pretty good. That's pretty good
Rebecca
stuff.
Sugar does really good music.
She did
so.
the goods. She did some hella good songs for Adventure Time. So
Sure did. So yeah, I don't know. If you have slept on it like me because you're a bit put off by the way it kind of looks when you don't watch it, I recommend actually sitting down and watching a couple episodes.
Sure.
Yeah, it's.
I'm sure it's available on
Give it a
something
shot.
I own.
Steven Universe.
Yeah, I got it on a very legitimate service
Indeed.
that I can't name for no good reason.
That I have just conveniently forgotten about, and please don't ask, and will not be taking questions on.
Correct.
I would like to recommend getting a new PC because evidently that's a
Fuck you.
Damn it.
very smart. It's a smart
Well,
thing to do.
Black Friday is coming up,
If
so
we can
I
afford
can't
it.
sell a kidney.
Because listen,
I mean, it doesn't have to be your
fucking
kidney.
hell.
Hope.
Exactly. There is a great point. It doesn't have to be your kidney. I didn't ask for my PC to die. I didn't ask for my hard drive to catastrophically fail.
I didn't ask
so
to
you
buy
never
a
asked for this?
$4,000 PC. Oh wait, yeah, you did.
I did. I don't know why I did that. Actually, I do because it's fucking incredible. I just turn it on and then I sit down and Windows is booted up before I've in between the time that I turn it on and I sit down in my racing rig.
That's just solid
Windows
state
is
drive.
That's just
buddy.
the
Like,
SSD,
mine
my
does
dude,
that
yeah.
too, and mine costs
You could-
not
Yeah,
anywhere near as
but
much.
I
as yours.
also
On the other
get
hand, mine
all the
crashes
frames.
almost every time.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not saying that you were dumb to spend that much money on a PC.
Hey, look.
I'm just saying, holy shit, that's a lot of money.
Look, it is a lot of money,
Yeah.
but my PC is probably not going to have to be upgraded for, well, hopefully quite a few years at this point. And to actually, most of the price was the graphics card. You know, a 2080 Ti is a fucking expensive.
So nobody needs that graphics card.
I need that graphics card because I'm
What if you're
driving
a
3
Bitcoin miner?
monitors.
What if you're a Bitcoin miner? You might need it.
Need the graphics.
You do.
I'm still running a standard 1080, and when I got it, it cost me.
That's
$1,000,
what I was.
so-
I was running a standard 1080, and the improvement is just incredible.
I can't believe
It's just
you
incredible. I'm
were
playing
running a 1080
everything
and you
on
upgraded.
Ultra, getting 130 to 150 frames a second. It's ridiculous. That's why I'm really looking forward to seeing Fallen Order on this. That's why I got it on PC, because I want to see sort of how it looks. and how
I'm
it
just
runs.
jealous. That's all this is. it's just pure
You can come
jealousy
over and play my
coming
PC.
out
Yeah.
in envious vitriol. It's
I'm gonna get a cheap ass laptop to go on.
And I think that should be the note that we end this on, is anger and jealousy.
it's fuck James and his fucking 2080 Ti.
I'm gonna join in on this just for fun. Fuck James. God damn him and his money computers.
I'm gonna recommend this TV show all about love and acceptance and fuck James.
Don't recommend.
I mean, that's the hidden
I'm
message
going
at the
I'm
base
going
of
to
Steven
recommend that
Universe.
Everyone unfollows me on Twitter and stops paying attention. Stops paying attention to what I'm saying about anything.
All right. That sounds like a show.
Self-cancel.
Oof, gone a bit far there, James.
Thank you, everyone, for listening and hanging out, and I don't know, paying attention to stuff. Hope, where are you on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at Hope_Corrigan, and yeah, I should have some reviews coming out on GameSpot soon. I got an article going up on Fandom. You can find me wherever you find good
Cool.
content.
Hey, that's pretty
stuff.
good.
Good stuff is coming. Patrick?
My Twitter is at Jintor_AU, and you can find me whenever you can find bad content.
Beautiful.
It's-
That's why I see you on the
it's
internet all the
true.
time.
Except The Guardian. The Guardian rules.
And you can find me.
You're like, shit, I'm employed.
You can find me at J_Swimbags. Like I said, you'll have my review of Planet Zoo should be up on GameSpot sometime very soon. I've also got a review of the Medieval remake, up there as well, from sometime towards the end of last month, a couple of weeks ago. Go and check both of those out, and I suppose that's going to be the end of our show. We'll catch you next time, folks. Thanks again. We'll see you for
Late.
another episode of the Video Game Small Talks.
Later.